I am delighted to be joined by Mr. Darren Coxon on this episode of the International Classroom podcast. Darren, for those people who maybe haven't come across your work, don't know you, whereabouts in the world are you based?
So I'm based up in North Yorkshire, but just on the edge of the Yorkshire Dales, actually. So I literally I'm surrounded by sheep, basically.
It is a beautiful part of the world, having travelled very close to it and through it actually over the summer holidays, because I have my family and my in-laws live up there. But this is not a podcast where we talk about all things natural and beautiful within the UK.
We're not here to talk about sheep.
No. We want to dive into some of the amazing things that you have been doing with AI and start discussing really what the future of that holds and where we can be going with it. So the first question and the kind of the scenario I want to jump into for you is that we've said that we need to stop teaching teachers how to use AI and start teaching them how to build with it. But let's really challenge this now. Is that a wildly unfair expectation when most schools can barely get staff to update a shared document?
Yeah, I mean, I think my premise is less about right this very second everyone needs to kind of stop going to the photocopier and start vibe coding, coding with AI. It's much more about the direction of travel that actually I'm kind of calling it what I'm calling small tech. So it's kind of our response to big tech, that we as schools, not necessarily even individual teachers, but schools, maybe groups of schools, can start looking at the ways in which they can begin building their own applications. Having said that, it's actually very straightforward to pop in a prompt into an AI and for it to create quite a good resource. So I think there is an element of training still. It's becoming increasingly easy. But I think when we talk about building solutions for schools, it's less about expecting teachers to suddenly kind of down tools and start building these kind of full stack applications. And it's more about the fact that we actually now have the potential to build things with AI that we never had before. What we choose to do with that, it's entirely up to us. I choose not to watch TV in the evening and I choose to build stuff with AI. I mean, that's my choice, and we all have choices. So I think it comes down to, look, we have the tools, therefore we have the ability. What we do with that, in some respects, is up to us.
And we were talking a little bit before we started recording about this from the teaching journey. And I think we first, probably met, didn't we? Was it, I'm trying to think when it was, you weren't long out of, I think, teaching, were you? And fast forward to the point we're at now, you've mentioned this, but like you said, educators aren't really meant to become developers. So I'm really curious from your journey and story, what happened?
Yeah, I'm not sure myself. So, I mean, am I a developer? In some respects, I suppose I am, because I'm working with building sort of full stack right the way through with the back end, and it's just me and AI working together. So we are developing together, I suppose. Whether I can class myself as a developer or just a slightly more advanced vibe coder, I'm not actually sure. But I mean, I've been doing the AI. I've been in the AI space, as you know, for about 3 years or so now. I was the head of a school in Tunisia. We were one of the first schools to adopt AI, generative AI, back in 2022, early 23, literally when ChatGPT was first released. And since then, I've really been supporting schools all over the world, kind of understanding how to use it. And I guess it was insane curiosity. My philosophy is, let's see if I can do whatever, I wonder if, and then I've just taken it from there and tried to share as much as possible with the community, as I've been building and mistakes I've been making. But there's no real kind of point at which I suddenly thought, oh, hang on, I'm actually developing stuff properly with AI. It just kind of evolved probably about over the last year.
Yeah. And I'm curious from that then, really, is there anything that really initially started it? Was it a case of all these different platforms that come about and we kind of bounce around between the main ones, the Claudes, the ChatGPTs, the Geminis, and then we started to see all these other things that were coming out, and especially into education? Do you think it was just a case of, look, I'm trying to find something that does what I want and does it well, and you didn't? Was there a case of that? I didn't really come across anything that fitted what I wanted, and it just happened. The stars happened to align with the technology, and went, oh, I can actually do this myself now. Yeah,
to some extent, you're absolutely right. So, I mean, I guess we're evolving from the wrapper, era I suppose you could call it, of AI, where we put in a prompt and it spits out a lesson plan. Most of the time, not a very good lesson plan, devoid of context, just about do, but it's pretty bland and not great. And there's no ownership. The teacher has no ownership of that lesson plan. So I think we're moving away from that now. And I'm not going to name any names, but we know the kind of usual suspects. They're okay. They do an okay job, but that's not what kids need. Kids don't need okay. Okay isn't, quite frankly, isn't good enough. We need to up our game collectively, and putting a prompt into a lesson planner is not going to do that. So I've always been of the mind, literally since I started, that the only way that we really start to leverage AI is if we put it in the hands of students. If we're actually working, that's what I call a cybernetic teammate, which borrows from Ethan Mollick's, cybernetic classmate, which borrows from Ethan Mollick's cybernetic teammate. Essentially, it will only really evolve as an education system if we, number one, put the tools directly in the hands of the students, and number two, see what happens next. Because we don't know, we don't know for sure. None of us know. None of us have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We know that we have to change. We know that we're basically, in the kind of the analogy that Alvin Toffler gave 50 years ago. We're teaching children to fish in a river where a dam is being built upstream. So it's that's the where we are. We're not really aware of just how quickly this dam is being built, but this dam is being built, and soon enough there'll be no fish left. So this is kind of where we are in terms of the development of education. What happens next, none of us know, but one thing is for sure, that the world now, we are team partnering with AI. We're seeing it in industry, we're seeing it in business, we're seeing it in startups, we're seeing it right across the piece. That those workers who are the most successful are those who are partnering with AI, who are using it to upskill, to accelerate, so on and so forth. Therefore, we have I believe, a moral obligation to support how we effectively enable our students to partner with AI, but there aren't that many solutions out there at the moment. So my thinking was, I'm going to see if I can build one, which is what I did. So I've built a platform. It's still very much in the MVP stage. It's certainly not production ready. I've got a few schools piloting it at the moment, but it's certainly not. I'm not at the full rollout. But I decided that I would create a platform that enabled teachers to safely share AI with students, which is what I've done.
Yeah, and I've been very fortunate to have a hands-on play with it and see it grow from where it is to what it is now, and it is a fantastic thing. And just to think that it's been built by one man in an evening with AI, and to what it is and what it can do is just phenomenal. Like when you think about, when you put it into that context and what it can do and how good it is a phenomenal thing. But I'm going to backtrack a little bit, because you said some things there that may have listeners in a complete panic or frenzy, or other people going, yes, I completely agree with it, but don't know how to do it. And when you say, we should just put it in the hands of students, what, in your opinion, what does that look like? Even if it's, I know you've got an English background, I know sometimes you like talking about science with it as well. Like, what would that look like for the listener?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's not it shouldn't be that scary. Essentially, again, I mean, I can speak to the platform I'm building, ClassForge, but it could be any. If you're over 13, it could be ChatGPT, quite frankly. Basically, what is learning? Well, learning is we're given something to do. We're given something to learn. We get blocked. We need to move forward past that block. We hit up against the edge of the zone of proximal development. We can't progress further, and therefore, what do we need? Well, maybe we need a teacher who can stand at the front of the classroom and teach us stuff. And we think, we're unlocked. Maybe we need to read a book. Maybe we need to talk to a partner. But also, we now have AI. So if we see AI as a tool that we can allow to partner with the students, that as they're working through problems towards a solution, when they need that help, they can prompt AI and it can give them a response, and then they can move on. So we start seeing it as a kind of, and that's how I use it. That's how most of us adults use it. We use it as an unblocker. We have a problem. Historically, we may have gone to Google. Often, many of us will now stick in a prompt into ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and get a response. We check it, obviously, to make sure it's accurate. But at the end of the day, most of us now, I certainly am, when I'm doing stuff and I can't do that stuff on my own, then I will almost certainly bring AI in and it will help sort of move me on quickly. So I think if we focus on that, if we focus on just saying, okay, so this is one tool of a number of different tools, but actually it's not about the tool. It's not about the whether it be Google search or whether it be Claude or ChatGPT. In some respects, that's irrelevant. It's more about the process that we need to enable pupils to go through, making sure that they're actually doing stuff that means something to them, stuff that they value, that they're not just kind of doing it because they're told they have to because it's in the exam. I mean, that's just an absolute motivation killer. So I think, yes, we need to kind of definitely consider what it means to partner with AI, but partner for what? And I think that's the broader question. It's because we can give kids an AI tool to help them write an essay, but many of them will just stick it into ChatGPT and it'll write the essay for them. That's not going to change. Therefore, what do we do about that? So and that comes down to what I just said a moment ago. It's like we give these tools to the students to use, safe tools, and then what's next? Well, one of the what's next is, well, we need to redesign what we give the students to do. And I think that's actually a more difficult question than how are they going to use an AI tool?
Yeah, and I completely agree with that, because it's the biggest thing I find challenging is bringing it into school for students to use. You've got the boundaries and the blocks from, right, certain things are accessible, certain things aren't accessible. That depends on the school you're in as well. And then it's, right, I have this content I need to cover. So let's say, what was I doing about today? So I was teaching about cells. So year 9 cells, inside working of cells, and trying to give them choice boards. And it's great. You can give them access to podcasts that you kind of make, or audio recordings that you've made. You can give them access to this. But the reality is they're not, in theory, using the AI themselves. It's me as a teacher using it to provide the learning experience for them.
Yeah.
And I'm scratching my head going, but where do I and how can I bring it in safely for them to use and add in that experience? And yeah, you can go, right, well, let's bring it in as a feedback assistant. Let's bring it in as a quiz master. And those are kind of the starts and the stepping stones, because the students themselves are still really unfamiliar of then, well, how do I use that? But I'm really restricted by the curriculum that I have to kind of follow and make sure that I've covered, as it were, in a period of time. And it's the twofold thing. It's once curriculums change, and then once we start to think differently about information in, information out for the student side of things, it's just a big challenge. But it's an exciting one. It really is an exciting one. And the thing that I wanted to talk to you about, again, with this is, and you've mentioned it a few times, is to do with vibe coding and the creation and what we can build. And you've mentioned it, as I say, a few times, but maybe there's people on there that haven't heard of it and don't know what it is. Like, just if you were explaining, let's say, to a year 7 teacher who's just uploaded their first PDF to Teams, that's simple. Like, how would you go about explaining what vibe coding is?
Yes, I mean, well, basically, when you're vibe coding, you're not physically writing the code. So you're not putting any of you might review bits of it. If you have a basic understanding, like I do, of working in these different environments, you're able to see when things are working and when things aren't working. But ultimately, AI is writing the code for you. What you become is you become the overall architect. You become the problem spotter. You become the project manager, I suppose, of working with these tools. And if you're just creating a worksheet, then there's not a great deal of project management. It's just a worksheet. It's basically just a substitute for your paper worksheet. You have to talk about the SAMR model. If you're sticking in the S of the SAMR, the substitution part of the model, then actually you're just replacing one thing with another. And you put a prompt into AI and it spits out some code, and you probably copy that code and paste it into an HTML hosting platform, and then there you go, you've got your resource. So at its most basic, it's nothing much more than write a prompt and copy paste. But when you start getting into building full applications, full platforms, then I personally believe vibe coding it's not really doing it justice, because it's hard. It's hard. I mean, it's really hard to get right, to build what I've built. It takes a long long time, and it's very, very hard. So it's not the sort of thing that you can just put in a prompt and it spits out a full application where you can authenticate and you've got a database to store all of your data. And no, you need to assemble that stuff yourself. AI is not going to do that for you. It might write the code, but all the other stuff is stuff that you physically have to do. You have to kind of, assemble, if you like, and prompt and put together. So that, in that respect, it's kind of tough. But ultimately, you can start today. You stick in a prompt, it spits out some code, and you can paste it into an HTML post, or use Claude artifacts, which does it for you, and that's essentially vibe coding.
And we've seen that a little bit with Canva as well, haven't we, recently?
Yeah, another good example.
In terms of amount of code, which, again, super safe and accessible for students. And more teachers are kind of latching onto it. But I'm interested from your point, like, should vibe coding matter to teachers? Should it matter in education?
Well, I mean, not if we stick in the. I mean, again, you mentioned Canva. I've got nothing against Canva. I think actually as a platform, it's one of the better ones, to be honest. I think they've done a good job, and I think they've really supported schools extremely well. So I've no problem at all with Canva itself. Same with Adobe and any of these other platforms. But I think that if all we do is replace a worksheet with a paper worksheet with a digital worksheet, then not really. It's not changing anything. Kids have access. Maybe they've got iPads in the classroom and they have a worksheet, which is this pretty vibe coded worksheet. Fine, but it's not changing education. And the difference with building proper applications is you have persistence. So what I mean is you save work. You can come back to that work. You can build on that work. You can bring persistent memory, which is what I've done. So I've brought persistent memory into my application, where essentially what happens is all of the interactions with the students are written back into the database, which means that the student can kind of, it learns about the student, which ChatGPT to some extent does. And people talk about the idea of ChatGPT having memory. The AI model actually doesn't really have memory. It's basically just keeping your data in a database and pulling it back through for the AI to kind of basically reread. But once you've got to the point where you can build persistence into your systems, that's when there are potentially unlocks, because of course then we can start building systems that genuinely get to know the students, can provide them the resources and the learning, but also from an analytical perspective. So my platform enables you to generate reports. And the reports aren't just like from assessments, because there are assessments built into the platform. All of the interactions the student has with the AI across all of their chats can be analyzed. So to look at progress, to look at blocks, to look at whether a student's struggling with a particular concept, maybe they've said 5 times, I don't understand. AI picks up on that and it's able to analyze, and then it's able to generate reports. So I think that, to answer your question, no, not really. Should they care? But I think when you start to realize that I'm an English teacher, can build stuff like this, then I think for some people, I think they will start to care.
Yeah, that same as I have. One is you always need someone at kind of the forefront, the vanguard, who's trying and experimenting and disseminating the information and sharing it like you've been doing to inspire others just to see what's possible.
Yeah.
And I've been massively inspired by it, going from just sort of building websites, generally websites, and then thinking, oh, geez, I can embed APIs. I can get this and create something and learn whilst doing it. It's, as you say, the hardest part with this comes as time. And saying that about the hardest part, I'm curious from what you've built. I really want to unpack the product you've got and learn more about it.
Sure.
Is to give us really curious about the unsell. Like, what has been the hardest part of doing this well?
Oh, I mean, even if I'm basically what I've decided to do, because I'm also a masochist. You do have to be a masochist to do this. Okay. It is really, really hard, and it's very frustrating, and it can actually be genuinely mentally and physically painful to do. So, I'm rebuilding So I made lots of mistakes with ClassForge. It's working well. I mean, don't get me wrong. The front end, you use it and it's working well and it's smooth and it's fast and it's not too buggy, which is amazing, really. But I'm sure if any developer looked at the back end, they'd probably just cry or laugh or maybe both. Because I think it is a little bit sort of stuck together with sticky tape and chewing gum. And because it's just the notion of building something organically with AI is it overwrites code. It puts in lots of fixes, quick fixes. And so at the end of the day, it's probably not the most stable code base, but that's fine because actually I'm just learning. And what I'm now doing is I'm rebuilding it from scratch with everything that I've learned. And I have to say, it is 100 times better with the rebuild than the original. I'm actually really excited, and I'm going to start, and we can talk about it in a bit. I'm actually going to do things that, quite frankly, you've not seen before. That's the plan. But essentially, the unsell is you are herding. My phrase is you are herding amnesiac cats when you work with AI code. Because basically, and you know what I mean, because you've tried a bit, Alex, so you know exactly what I mean. Basically, you're working with a tool that does not have a very good memory, number one. And it doesn't really matter. I mean, you could use Google Gemini and they say it's got 1 million token content. No, it doesn't. You get to 500,000 tokens and it just starts to hallucinate. So really, you've got half that. I work with Claude. So I only work now with Claude Code. So Claude Code is basically it's the Claude model which sits inside of a development environment. So I use Cursor. Doesn't really matter. There are several different versions. So I use an app called Cursor, and it basically means I can write my prompts inside of this development environment, and it creates the code. But Claude has actually not a very good memory, and the problem is that Claude's memory gets filled up very quickly when you're coding. And so basically what you've got an utterly brilliant developer who will literally forget everything every half an hour, and you've got to start again. And so the challenge with that, when you're building code bases of 150, 200, 250,000 lines of code, which these, I mean, some of these very, very large applications might have 1 million lines of code. You know, the really big, like, not mine, but some of the really, these really complex websites might have 1 million. AI simply cannot cope with that. So you've got to be unbelievably strict with, getting the rules in place, getting the workflows in place, getting the steps done before you start to build. Because if you don't, you will completely come unstuck, which is what's happened to me time and time again. So anyone who's listening, and I hope people are, if you want to do this, then you need to learn how to, and I am going to record some courses for this, by the way. So I actually am going to kind of record some stuff more formally to take you step by step through doing it, because I made so many mistakes. But the fact that you are literally herding amnesiac cats with coding, if you just approach it with that mindset, it actually really helps, because it stops you getting so frustrated when AI keeps making the same mistake over and over and over again. And one really stupid example, when you want to have, but it's actually very, very important, when you build a website, you want to have the same theme running all the way through the website. Yeah, so you want the same colors, and you want the same design on each page, and you want the same margins, and you want it kind of, so when you go from page to page, AI is terrible at that. If you just let it do its own thing, it will literally just code colors into every single page, and they might be different. And you look at it and you think, oh my goodness, this is just it looks awful. And so you have to be incredibly strict and consistently say, don't forget the rules, reread the rules, because if you don't, then you're just going to you're going to end up with a complete mess. So I hope that's a big enough unsell for you.
Yeah, I had that over the summer. I decided that I would redo my entire website, which isn't finished either, by the way. And I ended up having to get an information pack that was basically a style design with colors and prompts and all the hashtag references for colors. I can't remember what the correct term is for it now, but you know what I mean. And every time I came back to it, I had to start with that. Look at this. Here's the previous rendition. Here's a screen grab of what it looks like. And like we're making this part. Because even if it's in the same conversation, and again, memory runs out on Claude, it goes, you need to start a new one. I'm like, right, okay. have to bring it all over. It's the amnesiac cat's perfect description. Made me think of like Finding Dory, like and then Finding Nemo as well.
Round and round in circles. Oh, here we are again.
Yeah.
And it's like, I need to look for such and such. It's like I've literally just shown you. I end up writing in capitals a lot with Claude. Now, I've told you this 5, and I know it can't remember. It makes me feel better. I've told you this 5 times already. Look at the rules, go back to the rules. So I will literally, if you look at my workflow now, and again, I'm going to articulate this far better in a course, but basically my workflow is I will have a series of files, which are the rules. And they're really, really, design rules, database rules, API rules. So literally all the different layers, because in a stack, when we talk about full stack, we're literally talking about from the user interface right the way down to the database, and then you've got your APIs coming in at the side, which is kind of AI or whatever. So you've got the stack. You literally have to have very, very defined rules for every single layer of the stack. And then you have to have a master to say, right, read that first, because that's going to direct you to read the rules for every single part of the stack. You will do that every half an hour to an hour. So I'm almost working full time on a couple of applications at the moment, because I've got some projects for some schools that I'm working. As well as doing my stuff, I'm also building stuff for schools. And I literally will have, so that's the first thing, number one. The second thing, I use agile, and I cannot recommend enough using the agile process, which is just a project management process, when you're building web applications with AI, because basically what it does is it breaks it all down into chunks, big chunks, which are called eras, slightly smaller chunks, which are called stories, and then smaller chunks called sprints. And you literally break it down. And once you've done that, you're then just saying, right, we're on to sprint number 5. Check we've finished off sprint number 4, to what they call the DOD, or definition of done. Check the DOD. Right. Now you move on to the next sprint. If you do that, it is such a big unlock. I mean, I didn't do that with ClassForge. And actually, as a result, it took me. So I'll give you a good example. ClassForge took me 6 months to build. Okay. I've been rebuilding it to the point where I'm almost at the first phase in about 4 days. Wow. So, yeah, no. So a 6-week project, I will probably have finished in 2 to 3. 6-month project, I'll probably have finished in 2 to 3 weeks, to the same point that it was before, because I've become so meticulous in literally every single thing. And if you I spent probably 2 days doing that. Now it's flying, because I mean, it's still making mistakes. Don't get me wrong; it's not perfect. I'm still tearing my hair out, but I'm tearing far less hair out than I was in the first 6 months. So those 2 things: get your rules sorted, get your steps articulated, and actually then it's kind of happy days, really, because it's you and Claude just having fun, coding fun things together. So it is fun. I love doing it, but it is also painful.
I was going to say, you've given us the 99% painful part and finished with the 1%, but it is fun.
Yeah, no, I love doing it. But then, as I said, I'm a masochist. So, it is what it is.
So, okay, now that we've got the blood, sweat, and tears part, because I think that's pretty much what it is. Tell us, I'm really curious to know, tell us about the platform, tell the listeners and the people watching about the platform. What makes it different? Not from a marketing standpoint, but from you as an educator, and this is the key thing, you as an educator and what's at the heart of it, what is it that makes it different?
So look, I mean, there are 1 or 2 other platforms. Again, I'm not going to name them, but it's pointless naming them. But, you create an AI tool, you pop it in a room, and then students can access the tool in that room. So like a standard chatbot. So you can train it on some knowledge, you can train it on upload some data to it, and you can give it a behavior prompt, and you share it with the student, and they can, use it just like ChatGPT, like a ChatGPT. So that's one. But there are others. But I think I slightly went over the top, which is why I'm actually paring it back. I think I actually went a bit kitchen sink with the first version. I wonder if this works, and I wonder if I can do this, and it does. But there are some tools which I think are quite unique. For example, there's a tool where you can write an essay. So you share an interface with the students where they can write their essay or story, And then alongside that essay writing module, there's a chatbot, and the chatbot is trained to be a writing coach. It's not going to do the work for them, but it's trained to coach them through. Basically, what happens is it reads the essay title in the background, and it reads the assessment criteria, which you upload. So it reads the title and the assessment criteria, and that trains the writing coach to support writing about the essay or the story. So the teacher doesn't have to do anything else. They literally upload the assessment criteria, they copy in they write in the title of the essay, and then the AI tool, the chatbot, actually can talk them through it. But then there's things like they can't paste into the writing area. So because this just kind of came to me, it was literally I woke one morning and thought, well, we can't stop kids from getting AI to write the essay, but we can probably stop them pasting it in. So that's what I've done. So basically, it's like a window which you can't paste into. And then there are other tools like you can highlight part of an essay, and it will automatically give you feedback on that part of the essay. So you can kind of work like, I've written the introduction. Can you help me improve it? So it will do that automatically. There are other tools. There's one that works like Notebook LM, where you upload documents and it will only reference those documents. A few others as well, things like you can upload a PDF and have the chatbot sitting alongside it that's trained on that PDF, those kinds of things. So there are 8 tools that you can choose from at the moment. I might pare it back to 5 or 6. I think actually it's too many at the moment. But you've basically got these different flavors of AI tool. But then in the background, there's a lot of monitoring. So if a student says anything concerning, that automatically flags an email and an alert to the teacher. I'm being bullied, parents are breaking up. I don't know who to talk to. I'm very sad. I don't know what to do. I need some help. I need a friend. Those sorts of safeguarding disclosures will automatically be flagged up to the teacher as an alert, including an email. But also if the student tries to do something inappropriate, tries to get it to write essays for them, wants to talk about relationship stuff which is inappropriate in the school context or is just silly, then again they're sent a polite warning, but an alert is also sent to the teacher, just not an email, just into the dashboard. So there's kind of 2 levels of monitoring as well as what I was just saying, which is around the analytical function where you can do an analysis of a student's progress. You can get it to write reports. There's a feature which enables you to take a whole chat. So if you're going backwards and forwards, and turn that chat into a study guide, and then turn that study guide into a podcast. So there's kind of there and again, a lot of this, I'm not kidding you, Alex, a lot of this was literally often me waking up. I wake very early. I'm usually awake by 3:30, 4 in the morning. Most of the time I will wake up and think, I wonder if I can do this. So I literally will spend the first few hours of most days working to see if it. So things like the podcast, I literally remember waking up thinking, I wonder if I could, take a chat, like a back and forwards chat, take the chat output and turn it into like a study guide. And then I've got the study guide. I wonder if I can bring a voice AI in just to read it out. And sure enough, that by the end of that morning, I built that feature. So it's a bit different. It's a bit unusual. It's not really ready for lots of people to use yet because there are stuff that's breaking. But I'm happy for people to kind of approach me and say, "Can I have a play?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, have a play," as long as you're aware that it is very much still a beta version right now.
There's got to be, I'm curious then, a cost, because people are hearing like you've got about APIs and bringing this in, and
yeah,
are you finding there's is there a big cost to it, or actually now is it cheap to do?
Not really. I mean, that's a complete fabrication. The idea, I was literally having a conversation a few days ago with the school, and they're like, "Well, we're considering bringing in ChatGPT Teams Business, which is £25 per month per user." That's very expensive, but actually now. What I do is I use a lot of different AIs in the background. Most of them are open source. So really good example, if you use ChatGPT's new open source AI, it is, the price is tiny compared to the full ChatGPT or Claude, which is very expensive. So actually, if you're going to, and there are a lot of Chinese models that are not housed in China, they're either, the models themselves are either in Europe or in the US, that don't have any data retention, so they don't retain your data. They don't use the AI, your prompts for model training. So they're just literally, they've got the model there and you can just use it. The Chinese models are phenomenal, and they're very cheap, to the point where they're almost free. So actually, the notion that you're going to be paying an absolute fortune for what's called inference or AI completions or AI generating, responses is actually not. I mean, you're obviously, if I'm going to scale to 100,000 or 1 million users, then yes, there will be a cost. But by then I'll be charging and I'll be able to cover my costs. But the thing to say here from the cost perspective, and this is the really important one, so much of the cost of the tools that we use, like the standard $20 a month cost, a lot of that is the AI companies recovering the costs, the sunk costs of training the models. We don't have to do that. What we can do, in some respects, almost piggyback on the fact they've trained these models, and we can just use the base inference cost, the token. It's worked out by the million tokens, so the cost is per million tokens. We can actually just work on that almost base cost. And as a result, we can build applications and we can run applications that are genuinely really quite cheap to use. I mean, you're going to pay for a database, but that's not very expensive. You might pay for one or two other things around the outside. But I might be paying at the moment $50 to $60 a month, for maybe up to $100 a month for all of the costs for running this platform. As it stands now, when I scale, it'll probably go to 1,000, maybe 5,000. I'd be very, very surprised, even when I scale massively. If I do, I don't think I'll be going much above, maybe $5,000 or $6,000 a month in costs, simply because these AI costs have come down so much.
Yeah, that's good. It's just a curious thing in terms of what stops people from having a go at it is the assumption that when they see API and they see there's a cost for things, that they think it's going to be as expensive as the market sort of facing cost of things. But like you said, it really isn't, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, it really isn't. It's actually, in some respects, almost surprisingly cheap. So you can use one of the cheaper models. So I'll give you an example. I'm as we're talking, I'm inside of my platform, and I can one chat which might pass a lot of context into the model. So let's say, for example, I'm training the AI on a lot of context. So I've uploaded lots of documents, and it's having to kind of read them. And so actually, the information that's passed in at the beginning is actually quite high. One chat might cost, at the most, 1/10 of a US cent. So, and that's wow, quite a big output. If it's just a very short back and forth, one chat might cost 1/5 or 6,000th of a US cent. So you can imagine that actually, if you're using these very economical models, like some of the Chinese models or this open source OpenAI called OSS 120B, it's called. Not that it means anything, but that's what it's called. The cost is literally tenths, 100ths, or 1,000ths of a cent per chat. So it's not expensive at all.
Amazing. So we've got this idea, we've got these wonderful ideas now, and I think people listening are either going to be completely scared or really inspired to go out and have a go at this. I'm hoping it's the latter, by the way, because I'm curious and I want to see what I can do. But obviously within this, just sort of pivoting slightly, thinking about education and moving forward with this, from your experience of doing it and from going in schools and working with schools, what do you think is one thing that schools probably need to unlearn to make space for this?
Yeah, and it's a really good question. The title of one of my keynotes is "Making Room for AI." So that sort of chimes really nicely. Well, look, the problem that we've got in all of our schools is they're just massively overcrowded. We are so overwhelmed by initiatives and curricula and tests, and it's just reporting and planning and quality assurance measures, and it's too much. So, this actually comes back to way before I even started looking at AI, when I was working as a school leader, but also managing groups of schools former life, I was a chief operating officer, director of education across different groups of schools. And when I would go into a school, and also when I led schools as a head teacher, I would just ask the question, who are you doing this for? Literally ask that question. Look at every single thing you do in the school. Every single thing you do in the school. Who are you doing it for? And if the answer is, well, to please the governors or, for Ofsted, well, no, I mean, that's the wrong answer. Everything we do should be in service of our students' learning. And if it's not, then we need to get rid of it. So I think one of the things that we need to do, and I think we need to be quite brutal about this, is look at all of the processes in our school and look at what we can just get rid of, just abandon, but also look at how we can not replace with AI, but actually change what we do because of AI. So I'll give you a really good example. This is a classic example. So this is kind of the substitution versus the other modification, redefinition. I suppose it actually takes you from substitution straight to redefinition if you look at the SAMR. I mean, I'm not a big fan of SAMR, to be honest with you. I think it's a bit outdated, but it kind of works in this context. Okay, we've got reports. Okay, we've got student reports. We have, every term, teachers hate them. Parents probably don't read them that much, if I'm honest. They're not that valuable. I've never thought reports were that valuable. Okay, well, what we could do, we can get AI to write our reports for us. Genius. Problem with that is parents write and think, well, ChatGPT wrote that. This teacher doesn't know my students, my children at all. And you lose credibility. So what happens is you start to lose some authority as educators because the parents are like, well, you've just used AI. I mean, I say a lot, don't put AI between you and other people. So don't hide behind AI. Don't pass off an AI generated report as your own, because intelligent parents will see right through it and actually damage your credibility. Okay, so how else can you use AI? But what you can do, which is what one of the other things I'm looking at and working on at the moment, is you essentially will create ultimate sources of truth on the students. So you will literally have a whole 5 years worth of knowledge on the student, which actually goes into a database, what we call a vector store, and actually what's actually called a graph vector store, which makes multiple connections across documents. So a vector store will create connections within a document, but actually a graph vector store will make multiple connections both within and, so you can literally have multiple connections on a student. From an interface, whether it be typed or a chat, you can just talk to the data. That's it. You just have conversations with the data, and you're able to set permissions so that your head teacher can have a different level of conversation than the teacher or the parent or the student. So the student can have a certain level of conversations. I'm really struggling. I need help with X. The parent can say, how's Jimmy getting on with maths in the last week? How's his lateness been to lessons? And the AI will say, well, actually, I've noticed such and such a pattern developing, and it's something that this and then this is maybe how you can help us, the school, to support Jimmy with his maths attainment or his attendance or his behaviour, what have you. You don't need reports. So you can get rid of reports.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure, sorry to interject. So what you're saying with that is, if you have this database and you have permission, parents can just ask questions to the database
anytime
about how Jimmy is doing. Wow.
You don't. So what is a report?
Yeah.
A report is it's a legacy snapshot. It's a moment in time. It's retrospective for a start because it's always about what's been. But actually, what we now have, this is what slightly frustrates me. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm hoping more people do it. I certainly don't have the monopoly on this at all. I've just gone further down the rabbit hole than most. It slightly frustrates me. We have the technology. It is working. There are lots of doomers. There are lots of haters that say it's not this, it's that. Trust me, I'm working right inside these systems. They are really, they're really impressive. They're not perfect, and they are frustrating to work with. But the other thing to sort of links to this, and I think this is really critical for anyone who's interested in doing what I'm doing or kind of exploring this. The CEO of Anthropic, a guy called Dario Amodei, really interesting guy, ex-OpenAI. He actually left OpenAI because he was really unhappy with the direction of travel. He basically thought Sam Altman was not interested in safety. He just wanted to go for it in competition with Google, bigger, better, faster, not really caring about the safety. So he actually founded Anthropic with his sister because he just thought, you know what, I'm going to do it myself and I'm going to do it properly. And actually, as a result, I actually think Claude is the best. Of all of the systems right now, I actually think Claude overall is the best. But he said something very interesting in a speech he gave about 3 or 4 months ago. He said, if you're building with AI, you need to be building for the next model in mind. He said, because what will happen is you will come up against blocks. You need to be pushing these platforms as far and as hard as they can go. You will come across limits as to what they can do. Once you reach that, when the next model is released, you'll probably find that those blocks are unblocked and you can kind of go further. And that's exactly been my philosophy. So I'm literally now, I know I'm pushing these tools as far as I can go. I mean, there's not much more I think I can do with them without kind of basically driving myself to having a nervous breakdown. But I know that when the next iteration of Claude is released, like at the moment we're on what's called Claude 4.1, but when 4.5 or 5 is released, I know it will be significantly more powerful, useful, versatile, probably more memory, which is what we want. We want Claude with more memory. And that will unlock the next level. So that's why I just think if you're coming up against limitations now and you think, oh, AI is just not very good at this, and AI vibe coding, it's just, it's crap. Actually, it's not, for a start. It really isn't. If you do this properly, it really isn't crap. But also, even if it is, you'll probably find that a few months down the line, what you can't do now, you will be able to do.
Well, yeah, just look at photo, the video. I can't get my words out. Look at images, then look into videos. Now we can look at audio and podcasting. We what you can do with it. It's always there. It's always there. And I want a really nice segue into terms of pushing things, because I want to finish off with this AI experimentation that's been in the news recently from Stephen Bartlett. And what he's got out of this AI hosted podcast series. I think it's called 100 CEOs with Stephen Bartlett. And he's using all these different platforms. We've got Runway, 11 Labs, Wondercraft, I think it is. And it's got here to animate, narrate, and distribute episodes with a virtual version of himself. Now, he's saying that they're obviously in control of the scripts, but the AI handles the rest. And they've labeled it as AI generated content. And if we're seeing that from him, and he's someone who pushes media and does some wonderful things with it as well. If we turn that to an education perspective and thinking about where we're pushing it and thinking about the AI and authenticity, could we see a similar approach being adopted soon? But from that side, I'm curious in terms of what's at risk and what's there to be gained if schools use AI as a co-teacher, and I suppose supporting in delivering instruction rather than replacing it. What's your view on that?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I'm not sure it's particularly controversial. I mean, I think I'm not the only person who says this, but I think there's a lot of there's a philosophy. It's really a really interesting book called What to Think About AI. I think that's right, by Richard Susskind, or How to Think About AI by Richard Susskind. Really, I mean, it's for me, it's like the best book on AI written this year by a long way. And I read a lot, and for me, it's like I'm rereading it at the moment. He basically talks about the kind of not me philosophy with AI. It's like AI will impact on every profession but mine. And lawyers will say, well, it can't possibly replace me and journalists, etc. Teachers, we do the same. So we say, oh no, I mean, AI can't possibly replace teachers. No way, But actually, I think the answer is partly yes. I mean, I think AI won't replace good teachers, but it could very easily replace teachers who are not very good. Because I've worked with lots of teachers. I just think, you know what? For whatever reason, you probably shouldn't be in the classroom. For whatever reason, you might not be a bad person at all. I'm not judging you, but actually, you're quite frankly quite dull, and the kids are learning nothing from you. Maybe you're inside a system which doesn't support innovation or whatever it is. But ultimately, the experience the kids have is just not very good. You compare that to, let's say, for example, Stephen Bartlett is an AI avatar, and I am really interested in him. I watch his podcasts and I find him really interesting. And all of a sudden I have like one of these Hey Gen style interactive avatars, which we've got now, which is Stephen Bartlett. And I'm having literally like we're doing now, I'm having a conversation with Stephen Bartlett, and he's teaching me trigonometry. And he is literally saying, okay, so right, let's do this, work through this together. Okay. and literally just kind of talking through in a very interactive way with someone that I admire and I respect and I want to listen to. This is where I think there will be an unlock. I think in the next few years, we're just simply going to see products arriving which will enable that genuinely impactful back and forth. Not so much just not like a bot. You know, I mean, we've had things like Khan Academy, Khan Migo, and that, again, there are some great things that platform has done, but also some maybe things that haven't worked quite so well. It's not just like a chatbot. It's genuinely like having a relationship, because good learning comes from relationship, comes from building trusting relationships. If I, a student, am able to build a relationship with an AI tool, it means something to me, and I'm prepared to listen and be challenged and maybe have a bit of a joke or whatever, then actually I may well find I will learn better with that tool than sitting in a classroom with 29 other students where 10 of them are being naughty and I'm ignored because I'm the good boy, which is basically was me at school. You know, I look back at my lessons and I think, do you know what? I would have so much preferred to be taught by an AI than my maths teacher, because he was dreadful. So I taught myself, you know, I literally taught using revision books. I taught myself maths because my teacher was that bad. And literally the class was complete mayhem. We know that there are problems with behavior. We've seen it. We know there's a lot of problem with persistent absenteeism. We know these things are happening. And if that's happening on the one side, because lots of people simply don't see the point, and then on the other side, we might have AI tools that can start giving them a point, then do you know what? I actually think some teachers should be concerned, because I actually think that AI will not necessarily directly replace teachers, not at all. But actually, AI could give the support to some pupils that many, many teachers simply cannot, whether it's because they aren't able to, maybe they're not capable enough, maybe they're so unhappy in their own lives, whatever it is. There is a challenge coming. There is a challenge coming. And this is something that we need to be really awake to and mindful of.
Amazing. Darren, I really, really appreciated listening to you and getting this insight. I feel like I've learned a new vocabulary as well when it comes to like computer programming. I've got like graph vector stores and inferences and agile. All these things noted down, by the way. I love it. I'm probably the same one about the science as well. I like these things. So there's so much golden information in there for people to take away from listening and watching today. If anyone out there wants to kind of find out more about what you're doing, or get in contact, where is the best place to find you at the moment?
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm slightly transitioning with my website, so the website is probably not the best place. LinkedIn, Darren/Coxon, COXON on LinkedIn. Just that's where I post random stuff every day. It's where I connect with most people. So you can DM me and follow me, or connect with me or whatever. So yeah, I think LinkedIn right now is where you'll find me the most.
Amazing. Well, again, Darren, really appreciative of your time and coming on and sharing all the wonderful things. And yeah, for ClassForge, it's one of those, like you say, reach out and have a play with it, because it will completely change your perspective on what you can and could do with it in class. It's a great little project you've got going on there. So thanks for coming on and talking about it and all things AI today. It's been a wonderful conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you.